You've been hearing nonstop about how AI is the next frontier across all these different platforms, all these different industries. And as a nurse, I'm sure you're wondering, how can you actually get in on that? On today's live, what we're going to be doing is walking through the basics of ChatGPT, all the things you need to know about AI in general to start figuring out exactly how you can get a piece of this pie. In the event this is our first time meeting, my name's Timmy. I'm a nurse, but also an AI consultant that allows people to understand how they can actually integrate these systems into their businesses, into their lives, into their careers. So you can ultimately leverage exactly what is what everyone's talking about to be able to get your piece of that pie. Now, I want to walk through a couple of different things today, and we're going to keep it real basic. So, for some of y'all who are a little bit more advanced with this may be some new information. It may not be. But this really is going to be geared towards nurses. Now, why nurses? Because as AI starts to become integrated into all these different processes and the work that we do, we as nurses are the ones that need to lead that work. More than anything else, we are seeing that healthcare organizations, systems, administrators, they're all starting to realize if you do not include nurses in what it is that you're doing, what it is you're trying to implement, it will fail. Throughout the healthcare system, nurses are always the implementers. And anytime things go wrong, it's going to be nurses that are going to be the first ones to notice, first ones to bring it up. And so it stands to reason that nurses need to be the ones to guide this. And it's been interesting to kind of see how across the industry, especially when it comes to healthcare, that recognition has been there and continues to be there, which means that there's an opportunity for you. I know some of you that follow me also have entrepreneurial endeavors, entrepreneurial aspirations. You want to figure out how you can build something on your own. This is especially geared towards you. But I really wanted to start it right from the ground level. So people who have never accessed ChatGPT before have the ability to understand exactly how you can go about using it to just do the most basic of basic things that are actually going to save tremendous amounts of time. If you have questions, feel free to post those in the chat. Depending on where you are watching from, you may or may not be able to post directly in. I do encourage you, if you want to be able to post a question, hop in using this link that I'm about to drop in over here. That'll be the best way for you to be able to get access to that chat system. Lastly, before we dive in, I do want to mention I am hosting a masterclass on April 10th. And that masterclass is intended for those who want to actually figure out how they can actually start developing apps, your own app, which I'm sure you've heard people talking about. And yes, there's a very, very good reason for that. Because more than anything else, again, especially if you're a nurse in healthcare, you want to be very diligent in terms of what it is that you're spending your time doing when it comes to learning AI, because there is an unprecedented opportunity for nurses to get involved in developing apps that are going to guide the way that AI is going to be implemented in healthcare for decades to come. Because AI ain't going anywhere. Believe you me, it's not going anywhere. Without much further ado, we're going to dive into the first part of today's talk, which is going to be a presentation just walking through the basics. AI 101, prompt engineering 101 specifically. And what is prompt engineering? Well, let's chat about it. Essentially, when we are starting to interact with AI, it's important that we understand the AI proficiency quadrant. Now, what is this? This is something that me and my company have come up with that really breaks down the 4 steps to becoming skilled, proficient, and a master of using AI to accomplish specific tasks. It all starts off with prompt engineering, which is telling AI what you want it to do, the role that it's playing, as well as any restrictions around how you want it to go about doing what it's going to be doing. More than anything else, I want to make it really, really clear. If you do not know how to talk to AI, you will not be successful in doing anything with it. There's going to be an exercise in futility and frustration. Understand that just like communicating to another human being, you need to know the best way to interact with AI in order for your interactions with it to be fruitful. Once you get that down, then we can start getting into custom GPTs and automation. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, what that actually entails. But really, it just allows you to streamline what it is that you are having AI do for you. And I'll show you a couple examples of that. Then the next step here is autonomous AI agents. This is where things really start to get interesting. This is where you can start to see that what it is that you're actually doing has the ability to add value in a way that people are willing to pay you for. I'd say even at the automation level, you can start building a business around that. You can start figuring out exactly how you're going to go about leveraging what it is that you know as a nurse, as a healthcare provider, to be able to add value in a way that people are willing to pay you for. And then the next level, the last level, is building full stack applications or SaaS products, which is software as a service. Now, this is what we're going to be talking about on April 10th. But in the lead up to it, we are going to actually make our way through this entire AI proficiency quadrant. And you'll figure out exactly what it is that you need to learn to be able to get to the point where you're building full stack applications, which are applications that have both a front end or the user interface, which is what you see, and then the back end, which is where the data is stored, where all the magic happens, where when you click something, it actually does what it's intended to do. Now, the reason that prompt engineering is something that nurses need to begin mastering is there are so many different ways that you can go about using AI in the work you're doing today. Even if you're not in an informatics position, in a data analyst position, there are things that you can easily start doing today. I will talk about the most basic of basic examples in a little bit. But what you have the ability to start doing when you learn how to prompt engineer correctly is you can really streamline your documentation. You can extract interesting insights. And it gives you the ability to actually control what it is that AI is doing. Because the thing is AI is like a rambunctious child. If you don't set proper boundaries, it's just going to go crazy. And it's going to mess up exactly what it is that you're trying to do. So this is why we educate ourselves on the front end so that we can then be more effective on the back end. Just like everything else in life, you're going to get out what you put in. This is a universal law, which means that when it comes to generative AI tools, there is no exception there. It is very important that we take that time to learn it on the front end. And we'll see a couple different examples around what AI will produce when we are more specific about what it is that we want it to do. There are 4 steps to four elements to a high quality prompt. The first is to establish its identity. You are. What is the identity that this particular AI chat, this particular tool is taking on? Because again, we want to leverage AI to do specific things, right? We can't have it be a master of all things. You got to be specific in what you want it to do. And once we do that, that's when we start telling it what its role is, what its job is. And this is where sometimes people get tripped up because they don't exactly know how to tell AI what they want it to do. And usually when people are new to leveraging AI, this is where they start. Again, nothing wrong with that. That's where we all got to start, but we do need to take this step first, and you'll see why. We want to then set boundaries, restrictions, limitations. Tell it what you want to ensure that it emphasizes, that it focuses on, what it should avoid. What are some other things that you want to do to rein in what it's going to do? Depending on what it is that you're trying to achieve, this can be significantly more important than the other parts of the prompt. Because again, if you are wanting it to do something very specific, you need to ensure that it is not going to do anything that you don't want it to do, which again, sounds very basic, but you'll see what I mean in a moment. And then lastly, verify understanding. This may seem like a silly step or a unnecessary step, but you will be stunned at how much more you will get out of a single prompt when you engage in that last step. I will say that prompt engineering is significantly more technical than this, but of course, because this is for healthcare providers, nurses in particular, we ain't gonna make it all complex. That's unnecessary. But just know that this is the very basic framework, and starting off with this will make a tremendous difference. And we'll see a little bit of that in a moment here. Because of how important this is, I got a second slide for y'all on this. Make sure the instructions are clear. You don't want to give general, vague instructions, guidance. Because think about it this way, when we were in nursing school, everything is extremely specific in terms of how we do what we do, even when we get onto the floor. What it is that we need to do is, again, very specific. It's very prescriptive. We have policies, we have procedures, we have guidelines. Because, again, when we are dealing with human lives, human beings, the life and well being of people, people's moms, people's dads, people's children, specificity is key. Context is equally key. It's very important that we take that time to provide it with all the necessary information that it needs to make an informed decision as to what it's going to present to us. Some large language models, which ChatGPT is an example of a large language model, DeepSeek, which you may have heard of recently, making waves, is an example of a large language model. Claude, which people haven't heard about as much, but has recently been making waves in the last week or so with one of its newest releases, is a large language model. The way that we need to provide the contextual information varies. For the sake of simplicity, today we're just going to be sticking with ChatGPT. So we'll go through a couple pieces. But also remember that this is an iterative process. The first time that you share a prompt, you put in a prompt, assess what it is that it's doing, the output that it gave you, and then adjust from there. Just like anything else, this is a scientific approach. And we, of course, in nursing, we have the art and the science portion. And so we want to take that time to test things out, to try a couple of different things, and to go from there. So before I get into the demo here, I wanted to just chat about some very practical applications. And we're going to see a couple of these in just a moment here. My initial foray into using ChatGPT for just the simple basic things that I was doing in my work as a clinical informatics analyst, I should have mentioned that earlier. That is what I do for work. And of course, I do run a business in the background, was simply to edit my emails. When it comes to informatics, the vast majority of the work that I do, I shouldn't say vast majority, an enormous portion of it is through email. And I was spending, I don't even want to say how much time, a lot. More time than I would like to admit, going through and just editing my emails, verifying that there was no silly spelling mistakes that was going to drop my credibility. A lot of the work I do involves working closely with my directors, with leaders in various parts of the organization that I work in. And so it's important that, especially when people don't know who I am, it is very important that anything that I am sending, that is quality. Because the moment that you have a spelling mistake, your credibility is dropped, especially if you're having professional beef with people. It's like that whole idea of when you're about to roast somebody and you got a really good line, but you overthought it. And then you stumble over your words. Now, what would have been a big roast on that other person is now being turned back on you. Make sure you don't stumble. And this is one of the easiest ways to do it. Because again, for me, I don't consider my job to be making sure there's no spelling errors. My job is to ensure that I'm articulating information in a way that moves minds. And the best way to do that is to focus on the ideas as opposed to the grammatical parts of what it is that I'm trying to communicate. It also can be used very effectively to advance your career, using it especially when it comes to interview prep and things like that. I'm a huge fan of leveraging AI to just automate processes that used to take a long time. It's time to start getting creative with how we're using these tools. On the entrepreneurial side of things, one of my favorite things to be able to do is to take the time to use ChatGPT or whatever other AI tool to be able to expedite the creation of ideas. Now, the reason that this is huge is because when you put the right inputs in there, let's say there's a specific topic you want to talk about, or maybe you had a really good article that you came across that you want to create a piece of content on, or it inspired you to think in a certain way. You can then use that information to generate new and novel ideas. And this is one of the things that AI is very, very good at. Generative AI specifically, because it's good at generating ideas. So you put quality in, you get quality out. And workflow automation there's a lot of processes that are going on in the background when you are running a business. And vast majority of that can be automated. For anybody who knows a little bit about business, lead generation, which is finding people to engage in conversation with prospects, is one of the best use cases for AI, in my opinion, when it comes to entrepreneurship. Lead conversion is probably the best. And the reason why I like to focus on those two is because that's what immediately brings in the most money into a business. You find people who are interested in what it is that you're offering, whether it's a product or a service. You then set up automated systems that allow you to qualify those prospects, those leads. And then you can actually further implement systems that will allow you to convert those leads into customers, clients, people who are willing to exchange their money for the value you can provide. Again, whether that's in service form or in product form. Now, before we wrap up with this last slide here, we're going to spend a little bit of time going through a demonstration of a couple of different things. What I will say more than anything else is that when you're just starting out, it's okay to just experiment. Don't be scared. You're not going to break anything. Just take the time to make sure that you are learning with every application. And don't be worried about, I don't know. I find sometimes people are just like, oh, I don't know how to start. Well, then just start. Start prompting it and see what happens and go from there. So we're going to go through a couple of different examples of what good prompt engineering looks like, what bad prompt engineering looks like, so that you can then start to get an understanding of the types of things that you want to be considering when you are engaging in this type of work. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I like to use ChatGPT on the computer. They have versions for Windows and Mac, so it doesn't matter what it is that you're feeling, whatever it is that you're into, they also have it on the phone. And I'm a big fan of using it on my phone because when I'm on the go, it's nice to just chat with ChatGPT and get some specific answers to things while you're on the go. I'm just a big fan of that. For today's purposes, we're going to focus on two of the initial uses that I leveraged AI for, which was number one, editing emails, as I had mentioned, and then number two, using it for interview preparation. On the second point, I am going to say that if you're the type of person who wants to start leveraging AI to build your entire resume, your entire cover letter for you, do not do that. That is a foolish mistake. And the reason why is that is what everybody has been doing for the last few years. And I want you to just consider the position that hiring managers and recruiters are in. It is their job to look through resumes and cover letters. And when they start to understand the way that a ChatGPT produced resume or cover letter looks, the moment that they see that, they're just tossing that, because that shows them that you didn't put in the effort that was necessary to be able to do something on your own. Do not ever take your resume and then paste in the job description and tell ChatGPT or whatever other large language model to adapt your resume or cover letter to that job. Do not do that. Because when you do that, AI has a very specific way that it outputs your resume and cover letter, which is going to be immediately picked up by these hiring managers, by these recruiters. That is their job. They literally spend hours every single day, multiple hours every single week, dozens of hours in a month, looking at resumes and cover letters. You don't think that they're not going to see the pattern? Come on now. People aren't stupid. So you got to be wise. So we're going to talk about what you can actually do to be more efficient in terms of being able to do that. So we're going to start off with the email example. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for my ChatGPT window here. Give me one moment. All right. And we're going to start off with a nice little simple prompt around what you can do to be able just get a good understanding around how you can leverage these tools to be able to do some very basic stuff. Goodness. All right. So This is what ChatGPT is going to look like when you open it up on the desktop. It's going to look the same on Windows. I use Mac, as you saw. So we're going to start off with a very basic prompt that I would say is, a mediocre at best. Mediocre at best. And the thing is that we want to be as effective as possible when it comes to leveraging these prompts. All right. So to start off, let's see if this is going to work this time. We're going to use that example that I had mentioned earlier, just around leveraging this to be able to start off with something as easy as editing your emails. And I know that that seems very basic. I know that it seems like it should be very straightforward, but I'm telling y'all, there's a method to the madness. And so we want to be able to just be wise in the ways that we're doing that. Okay, we good to go now. Bet. All right, now we cooking. We're going to start with a real basic example here. We are going to pop in a prompt that I would say is terrible. That does not follow what it is that we chatted about earlier in the 4 elements of a high quality prompt. This is what most people do when they first start off. They're going to drop something like, I want you to edit this email to make sure that I didn't make any spelling mistakes. And for example's sake here, we can maybe just draft up like a very simple example here. And yeah, we're going to put some intentional spelling mistakes, obviously, to simulate this. All right. Okay. So this is nice. And because it's a nice, simple example, yeah, I was able to deliver that. However, remember, there's 4 parts to a high quality prompt. Number 1 is identity. Number 2 is the role or the job. Number 3 is restrictions. 4 is seeking understanding. Now, this is what I would call a quality prompt. We're going to start with something like this instead, and I'm going to start a new chat here. So here we have all 4 of the elements, and I'm actually just going to highlight them for you here. So we've got first our identity. You're a copywriting expert that excels at writing emails or editing emails rather for spelling, syntax, grammatical, and word choice errors. So obviously spelling, syntax, grammar, pretty straightforward. When I say word choice errors, it's like that example I had there earlier where it was like T-O-O when it should have been T-O, things like that. Then next, we have our section here where we are going to tell it what the job is, right? I have hired you to do this specific thing. Third is restrictions. And this is one of the things that when I first started leveraging, I really understood how important it is to put these restrictions in place, because sometimes it's just going to start going crazy, and it's just going to start adjusting things that you didn't intend it to adjust. And it's going to make you sound like a totally different person where people will know that something is different. We don't want that. And so we need to specify. It is important that you retain the original tone of the email and do not adjust it, as I have a very specific style that I use to communicate. It is crucially important that this remains consistent. You are to summarize any errors that I have made and point them out so I can learn for the future. And I expect you to summarize all changes made as well as the corrected email. Now, the reason that I like doing stuff like that is because, yeah, it was nice that it did it over here, but it won't always do that. It'll just say, yeah, we changed this, we changed that, and that's it. We want to be a little bit more prescriptive than that. And then lastly, do you understand? This is the most underrated part of the prompt. Do you understand? This is a nice, simple example here, but more than anything else, what I have seen is that when we don't engage in this practice of asking for what it is that it's understanding or that it doesn't indeed understand, we sometimes miss the opportunity for ChatGPT or whatever other large language model to ask clarifying questions. Now, in this example, very simple, so it probably won't have any. We'll go ahead and put it in here and we're going to see what it's going to say. There we go. So now it's ready for us. So why don't we go ahead and we can take our previous example here. We'll copy that and paste it over here. And the nice thing is that when you take the time to do something like this, then every time you come back to this chat, you don't need to redo it. There you go. So I like this. Obviously, the output looks very different because it's a very simple example. But the nice thing is that as you continue to use this specific chat, because we've taken the time to be able to do this here, it's going to allow us to get the it's almost going to be like you have actually hired somebody to do this for you on an ongoing basis. And that's the intention. For me, I've been running the same chat for like 3 months plus. And the reason I like that is because I don't need to continue doing that prompt engineering piece. You have a high quality prompt in the beginning and it saves you tons of time on the back end. Now, where the difference between prompts is really going to be illustrated is in this next example here. Now we're going to use ChatGPT to help us prepare for an interview. So we are going to pretend like we are going to be interviewing for a clinical informatics analyst position. And we're just going to go ahead and prompt this in here. I'm going to say, I have an interview coming up for a clinical informatics analyst position. Give me sample interview questions. Basic example. And yeah, you may get some stuff here. But again, we are missing that structure and you'll see the difference in the quality here. So we'll go here. And when it says memory updated, that means that it's committed a specific piece of instruction to memory and will continue to do that. Now you can actually ask it to be able to commit something to memory specifically. And in this example, not bad, not bad. And here it's going to go down and talk about general questions, which again, we all know we've all been asked these types of questions before. And you know what? It did a pretty good job. Did a pretty good job. I'm not going to lie. Just browsing through these are all questions that you might be asked, which is great. However, people who take the time to study what it is that I'm talking about today, they're going to do something like this instead. And you're going to get much more out of it. So we'll break it down again. You are an expert interview preparation consultant who excels and specializes in preparing bedside nurses for their first clinical informatics analyst interview. Period. I have hired you to provide me with holistic interview prep guidance, coaching, oh goodness, and training in terms of what it'll take to be successful in the interview without having previous clinical informatics analyst experience. There we go. That's the job. Your role is to provide me with a comprehensive overview of how I should prepare for the interview, as well as sample questions that I can review for consideration. Ensure that you provide me with guidance on how I can answer knowledge-based, specific, situational, behavioral questions, and general questions. And then, of course, we go and finish off with our do you understand? And let's see what happens. So we start off with the memory updated. Right off the bat, entirely different, where it's giving us an overview of the role, how to prepare, types of questions, as well as a mock interview practice and sample. Beautiful. Post-interview strategy. There you go. We weren't getting post-interview strategy in the first part because, again, this prompt is a lot more holistic. We have specified that we don't want just the questions. We need the holistic thing. And I didn't even ask for this. All right, so let's go. I will now start by providing detailed interview preparation guide. All right, begin. All right, let's see what it's going to do. So this piece here, I think is phenomenal because a lot of people that haven't really looked deep into informatics but have no idea what the role actually entails, which I always kind of think is a little bit funny. One of the things that people often come to me for in terms of services is to help them get into informatics or just non-bedside roles in general. And I've always found this to be a little bit funny how it's like, oh yeah, I don't know much about informatics, but I think it has something to do with the like EHRs or technology. I'm like, yeah, you're pretty close. But the nice thing here is that ChatGPT making it easier for you. Sure, obviously do your own independent research too, but this is nice that it's also provided this for us. So here now it's breaking down how to prepare for the interview. Study the job description carefully. And anybody who's been watching my content for a while, y'all know that that is something I preach all the time. Do not just apply for the position and just leave it. After you apply for the position, make sure that you copy it. Because once that position comes down, when they start doing interviews, you won't be able to use that as a resource anymore. So make sure you copy it down. And I love that it's even talking about Epic. Yeah, anybody who knows anything about informatics knows that Epic is the best. What EMR system do they use? Oh, there we go. This is way better than I even expected. Goodness. Think about real life examples where you identified inefficiencies. Oh, that's good. Helps colleagues with new technology. Oh, this is beautiful. Showcase your informatics mindset. Not bad at all. Refresh your knowledge on key informatics concepts. And then we start getting into types of interview questions. Now, most people don't actually know that there's 4 types of interview questions. So of course, because I had that knowledge, I was able to specify that. Knowledge-based, situational / technical, if you will. I guess knowledge-based and technical are kind of the same. Then we got situational and then behavioral descriptive. And then just those general questions. And then we got our post-interview strategy. Now, the beauty of using this 4-part prompt here is that you are going to get significantly more, right? All they gave us the first time was interview questions because that's all we asked for. But when we told it what its role was, or identity rather, what its role was, meaning we've hired it as a consultant, it's going to operate in that capacity. And of course, when you are hiring a consultant, it is their job to ensure that you get the outcome that you're seeking. This actually was phenomenal. I love the way that this actually worked out. And then it gives us some final thoughts here, right? Really take the time to make sure that you know what you're doing and that you sound like you know what you're doing. Use real world examples, which of course is going to come through in your behavioral descriptive interviews, which again, the STAR method, I use STARZA with an S, which that last S stands for skills. But yeah, this is going to work really, really well for that. This is where you get to use your real life examples and then practice answering your questions out loud. This was actually phenomenal, way better than I expected. I've actually built a custom GPT, which is the second part or the second level or the second part of the quadrant, if you will, that allowed me to be able to actually streamline all of this. So I didn't need to give this prompt every time. And we'll demo that in a little bit here. But this is a phenomenal example of why it is so important to be able to learn how to do this stuff effectively. Nice. All righty. So coming back to this last part here, I wanted to go through a couple other slides and then we go and do a little bit more. I want to show you guys something cool in terms of the last part of the demo here. But I hope that that last example really illustrated just how much you're able to elevate when you take that time to discipline yourself and to learn this. And it isn't hard. It's just a little bit of extra intentionality. That's the biggest thing that I want you guys to get out of today's talk here. Be intentional about the way that you engage with AI, and it truly will transform what it is that you're capable of doing. Now, the reason that this is something that I'm so passionate about is I've been able to take everything that I've shared with you guys today so far, and in a few months went from learning how to really fine-tune my prompt engineering to then building custom GPTs, which allowed me to be able to add value to the people that I coach and mentor, where they can get access to my mind, my mindset, my mentality, my teaching, my perspective, without me necessarily having to be there. And that was beautiful because not everybody has the ability to work with me one-on-one, whether it's a time, finances, or other resource issue. So I said, okay, how can I go about adding value to people in a way that doesn't cost anything, whether it's time or finances, on my part or on their part? And the answer ended up being building a custom GPT that would allow them to be able to get access to the way that I would respond to specific questions without having me be there. And then the beautiful thing about something like that is that then they can get access to my knowledge 24/7. And when you build tools like custom GPTs that really are just your own version of a chat GPT chat that has pre-installed instructions and a pre-installed base of knowledge, that really kicks you up into another gear. Because every time you start a new chat, you have to tell it what you want it to do. But this saves you a step and ensures that you have the ability to get high quality output right from the get-go. So what I'm going to do is we're going to see if this is actually going to work. I believe it should. And we are going to actually chat a little bit with with the first custom GPT that I ever built, which was specifically designed to help you prepare for nursing informatics interviews. Because of course, there is a lot that goes into being able to leverage your knowledge as a bedside nurse in a way that is going to actually be relevant for informatics. And this is the thing that always trips people up in the beginning when they first start, is it can be tricky to understand how to actually engage in those questions. Because if you've never had that type of position before, then it's going to be tough for you, no doubt. So I'll give you this example here. This custom GPT, I later built out into a AI voice agent, which of course is the third step or the third quadrant in our AI proficiency quadrant. But the beauty of having access to this in ChatGPT is it just makes it really simple to be able to engage it. And so these are some prompts that I added in when I built this. But the thing that I really, really liked was being able to talk to it. So we're going to see if this is actually going to work in terms of audio. I believe it should. Let's test it out. Hey, so I have an upcoming clinical informatics analyst interview, and I need your help in preparing for it. So, can you walk me through some things I should be considering as I start to prepare for this interview? Oh, let's see if it's going to work. Mm, By the way, I'm a, as I said, I like doing this on the phone, so we're going to do that instead. And if you haven't downloaded ChatGPT on your phone, what are you doing? All right. Hey, so I have an upcoming clinical informatics analyst interview, and I want you to help me prepare. What are some things that I should be considering as I start to prepare for this interview?
To prepare for your clinical informatics analyst interview, consider these key areas. 1. Understand the job requirements. Review the job description carefully to identify the required skills, responsibilities, and preferred qualifications. Pay attention to keywords that hint at what will be asked during the interview. 2. Review your experience. Be ready to discuss your relevant experience, especially related to electronic health records, EHR, data analytics, process improvement, and healthcare IT systems. If you have gaps in any required areas, do some research to strengthen your understanding. 3. Prepare for behavioral and situational questions. Expect questions about conflict resolution, teamwork, responding to unexpected challenges, problem solving, and initiative. Use the STARS: situation, task, action, results, skills, method to structure your answers effectively. 4. Anticipate technical and knowledge-based questions.
And then it goes on and on and on. There's the other pieces it mentioned were practice responses to common interview questions, and then it listed a bunch of them. Tell me about your experience in clinical informatics. Describe a time that you improved the informatics process. How can you handle resistance from clinical staff when implementing new technology? Then it talks about prepare thoughtful questions to ask the interviewer, which it did not in the previous thing that we saw earlier. The reason that it didn't mention that is because a lot of people, they don't consider how important it is. And let me tell y'all right now, if you ever go to an interview And at the end of the interview, they ask you, do you have any questions first? And you say, no, you have forfeited the position. Just know that. That is a crucial piece. And that is one of the things that nurses struggle with the most. And do not ask, when can I expect to hear back from you? Do not ask, what does success look like in the next 90 days? Because everybody asks that. You do not want to be average. You want to make sure that whatever it is you're doing, you standing out. Then the other two pieces it mentioned were, or the other one was mock interview and self-assessment, where it says to actually record yourself. This is one of my favorite things to do, to make sure that when I am preparing for my interview, that I'm going to be locked in. But again, the average person ain't going to do that because like, oh, I don't like the way my voice sounds. Oh, that's kind of cringy. I don't want to like look at that. Then you're not that serious about the job. It's really that simple. If you have the ability to get a job that is going to transform your life, the trajectory of your career, does it not stand to reason that we should probably put a little bit of effort into preparing for that? Obviously. And so this custom GPT helped me understand that, okay, I can package all of my years of informatics experience, all of my years of interview expertise. Personally, I have never interviewed for a job that I did not get. And that is not just in the world of nursing, that is in my life as a whole. Like the entirety of my life, I've never interviewed for a job I didn't get. So that helped me understand that if I were able to package this knowledge and just share it with other people in a way that it has no cost to me, I would love to be able to do that because of the impact that that would be able to have. I love adding value to people, especially when it comes to interview prep, because that really does have the ability to be transformational. And so more than anything else, I really, really want to encourage you, take that time to start learning how to engage with AI. There truly is no limit to what it is that you'll be able to do when you do take that seriously. Now, as I mentioned, I do have a masterclass that's coming up on April 10th. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link for that in the chat here. And this particular masterclass is geared towards those of you who want to actually take things to a completely different level. Those of y'all who are willing and able to actually add value to an organization, to a system, where you actually can build something that people are going to actually want to pay you for because of how much of a difference it makes. And I want to give you guys just a high-level overview of some of the things that I've recently built. And again, I've only been doing this for, well, it's been a little bit, I'll be honest, but it's not as long as you guys think. The gap between where I'm at and where you are is just a little bit of intentionality. And so more than anything else, just take the time to start getting familiar with how to engage with AI, especially in healthcare, because I'm telling y'all right now, it is going to be incredibly profitable, incredibly rewarding. And more than anything else, we have a significant need for nurses who have the ability to create things that are going to solve problems that are specific to healthcare. Because what I've seen, and we've all experienced it, where you have some sort of new change that's coming out, some sort of thing where people are like, oh yeah, you know, this is going to be the next big thing that we're going to be focusing on as an organization. You can already tell right from the jump, you're like, oh yeah, this ain't gonna work. This ain't gonna work. And the reason you know it ain't gonna work is because they didn't consult nurses when they was doing it. If nurses aren't involved in it, it's not gonna work. It will fail. And we've seen this time and time again. And I'm sure you guys have all been in that situation where you're like, oh yeah, okay, we'll see about that. And sure enough, they're like, oh yeah, you know, after feedback or after this and this and that, we're going to revert back to what it is that we were doing before. You can be that person that's going to ensure that they don't have to take that step. And the reason that nurses are well positioned to do that is because we work with the patients every day. We know what it is that actually gets in the way of us being able to do what we want to be able to do. But you got to start simple, right? You're not going to start today figuring out how to do prompt engineering and then tomorrow building full stack applications. You won't. You got to start small. But even when it comes to being able to start understanding what you can potentially do, I think that seeing is believing. And it's very important to be able to have somebody show you what could potentially be possible. So I'm going to show you right now. This was the second app I think that I built, but it was an exercise in how quickly can I actually build something like this. And so for this particular one that I'm about to show y'all, I actually built this guy in 24 hours. A full stack application that I could deploy tomorrow, which to be honest, I probably will. I really like this. So I called it Recordify. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to touch this button and say what it is that your expenses were, and it'll track it and it'll list it for you. And you have the ability to export it to a spreadsheet. We wanted to keep this really simple. Of course, we could get all technical with all the different ways you could go about slicing and dicing the different types of expenses, but we wanted to keep it simple. So it's essentials, recurring monthly payments, and then leisure, I think, is the other category. And so I'll go ahead and demo it, and I'm going to pull it up on my phone. We learned our lesson last time. But what you would just do is you would click this guy here, and then it's going to start recording, and I'm going to tap it, and it's going to say here error because I didn't give it anything. But we're going to pull it up on the phone, and I'll show you how it works. And then I'm going to show you the dashboard after, which was the dopest part. And like I said, I built this in 24 hours. I'm not kidding. And it wasn't 24 hours straight. $300 on groceries, $899 on a new television. All right, there we go. Recorded expense successfully. So then we just go and refresh this and then go into our dashboard. There we go. New television, $899. Groceries, $300, which is definitely not surprising for a single person these days. It's crazy what's going on. And as you can see, we can go in and we can download this. This will download it to a spreadsheet. That we got this little pencil icon right here to edit in case it misheard us, because maybe we're out on the street or we're still just leaving the grocery store and wanted to get this in right away. We can delete. We can go in and see this little dashboard. We can go back and see what we was doing last month when we were testing this. And it's going to give you this nice little pie chart to show you. Or let's even go back to January. Oh yeah, there we go. And it's going to show you all your different expenses. And then you can export it. This is something that's really nice and simple for those of y'all who are trying to figure out exactly where your money is going, but don't want to go through the pain in the backside of actually going in and checking every single receipt, checking every expense. To be honest, that's what I'll still be doing, because this is an oversimplification, but at the same time, it gets you going. And like I said, I built this in a day and it's ready to ship. Then once you get the basics of just having a single function application down, the next step then is that you have the ability to go through and start building applications that have multiple functions. Now, of course, if you are a nurse who wants to add value in the healthcare space, something like that is going to be a necessity. So I'll give you an example of how far I've been able to come with some of these things here. And this truly is my passion now, because more than anything else, I've seen that when you have the ability to use the knowledge that you have to create a measurable impact, the income that you can make, sky's the limit, truly. Because at the end of the day, we are paid not for what it is that we do, but rather the impact that what we do has. And it's very important to remember that. This is why, even though the nurses are the ones working with the patients every day, is the doctors that are making the paper. Because a doctor, physician, could be responsible for 20, 30 patients, depending on the type of department or unit or service that you're working for. And as a nurse, we're probably going to have 3, 4, 5, 6, hopefully not more than that, patients. We're only able to add value to the patients that are directly on our caseload that day, on our assignment that day, or the patients that we're going to be covering breaks for. Whereas a physician, they're going to be helping all those patients in that department. Then they probably have a clinic, probably have a private practice, and then they're going to be on call. They add value to many, many times more patients than we do over the course of a month. That's why they be making the paper. However, when you become a nurse consultant, when you start figuring out how you can use your nursing knowledge, your skill set, what it is that you learn by reading books, your personal growth and development, and then you start actually using that to solve real problems in a way that other people are incapable of doing, the rewards that come with that are infinite. And I don't want y'all to be sleeping on that, because again, it does not take much to be able to get to the point where you have the ability to do this. Just a little bit of consistency. And if that's something that you're trying to learn how to do too, you know where to pull up and find me. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to show you this example here. And then I'm going to be excited to see who else wants to pull up for this masterclass to see who's actually going to start hitting the ground running when you learn how to be able to start off with that prompt engineering, start building custom GPTs and automations, start building agents, and then getting to this level of being able to build these full stack applications. Now, what I'm about to show you here, long-term project. We still got some work to do, of course, but we get in there bit by bit. This is one of my masterpieces in the making. And it is a fully built out EMR system that will allow you to actually go in, do documentation, set appointments, all that beautiful stuff. This is more so geared to like an outpatient clinic as opposed to like a hospital. So we can go in and we have our different charts here. Of course, I got a little test patient button because we gotta make those test patients to make sure it's going. We got our MRN number, next visit, last visit, all that good stuff. Then we go into the chart. We got demographics, which obviously we haven't added all of this. This is a test environment still. And then the nice thing about our AI-enabled assistant is that when it is fully built out and we actually have information in here, then we can use AI to be able to analyze and get specific insights on what's going on. We got our notes section. This part's like one of the funnest parts here. You can go in and write new notes, and this man's had a sore throat for a long time. Oh, if I could spell. And then you can go in and you add a cosigner if you want. You can save it as pending if you got to come back to this. So we just go, oh yeah, nice, that was good. But you have the ability to go in and do all these things here. You can edit your notes, you can delete notes. It's beautiful. And then as we go on, we'll continue to develop these pieces here. This is something that I was able to, in fact, I think this was the second or third app that I started building. And this really helped me understand that, yeah, we have the ability to create solutions that are going to be specific to the areas that we work. And so if this is something that you'd see value in learning more, that link for the masterclass is in the chat there. And I strongly encourage you to pull up. That being said, if you're like, you know what, I need to get started on this today, and you ain't trying to wait, I'd recommend that you just book a call and we can chat, sit down, see if this is going to be something that actually makes sense to explore, because it is something that I do teach, and it is something that I'm very passionate about teaching, because more than anything else, I want to see more nurses getting into this entrepreneurial space, using what it is that you know, that you've experienced, the knowledge that you've gained by interacting with patients. I want people to be in a position to be able to actually use those skills to be compensated for the value that they actually add. The problem with working a job is that no matter what, they can't compensate you what you're worth. They never will be able to. And if you are somebody who is highly capable, highly ambitious, you put everything that you can into adding value to other people, the pay that you get in the job is never going to reflect that. So if you truly desire to be able to create a measurable impact in a way that will compensate you for the value that you actually add, you're going to have to start a business. And for me, categorically, for nurses, the best opportunity right now is nurse consulting, but specifically in the area of AI. And that is why I'm going to be going through and doing these weekly webinars for the next few weeks leading up into the masterclass that's going to be happening on the 10th. Because if you truly do desire to be able to create applications that are going to solve real healthcare problems, where you can use your knowledge, experience, and skill set to be able to actually create solutions that make a real difference, there's steps, of course, that we got to get to, that we got to go through. And I want to walk you through those steps. There's only a few people that I'm going to be looking for the rest of March, and then a couple more for April. If you desire to be one of those people who is going to be considered for my clinical analyst builder program, go ahead, click the link I just dropped, fill out the application, and we'll see if it's going to be a good fit for you. As I said, I'm pretty picky, because at the end of the day, y'all going to be my competition. But at the same time, I'm not the type of person who's going to be like, oh yeah, you know, there's only so many spots. No, there's room for all of us. Because again, even though you've been hearing people talk about AI, the reality is that most people haven't done anything with it. Most people have not even ever opened or downloaded ChatGPT. So when we get to the point where we're talking about building full stack applications, I guarantee you the average person ain't even close to doing that. But just be aware that every year, AI takes quantum leaps. By the end of this year, where AI is going to be, I can't even imagine. It's just crazy to see what's been happening even in the last few weeks. So take what it is that you've learned today and put it into action. Take those small steps. Start something. Start with the little chat that's just going to edit your emails. Remember the 4 steps. The 4 parts are the anatomy of a high quality prompt. Identity, you are. Role or job, I have hired you to. Your job is to. Your role is to. Restrictions, I want to ensure that you do not. Give it guidelines. Remember, it's a rambunctious child. You got to set boundaries. And then confirm understanding. Just practice. Yes, this is a skill, so you do need to practice it. Just like anything else in nursing, you need to practice. Join communities. Find people who are doing what you're trying to do. I guarantee you in your workplace ain't nobody really talking about this, but there are many people out there. We are not as unique as we often think that we are. We just need to put a little bit of work into find people who is doing what we want to be doing. And you will be surprised that there are so many people who are wanting to be able to teach others this type of stuff because it's cool to see what people can achieve and build something useful that's going to actually solve real problems. Your nursing knowledge is so much more valuable. Direct patient care is important. We need to have nurses that are providing care. It's crucial. But we also need nurses who are going to lead the way to the future, who are going to walk us through the next steps of what's coming. Because believe me, there will be health systems that will try to replace nurses with AI. It is going to happen. What we need to do as nurses to ensure that that doesn't actually impact our jobs, our lives, but more importantly, the lives of our patients, is we need to be the ones leading those efforts. And that starts with educating ourselves. That starts with getting into a position where we have the ability to say something meaningful about how AI should be used in healthcare. We are at a crossroads. Y'all need to understand that this is truly an unprecedented time in the profession. There has never been a time where nurses were better positioned to be able to create a significant impact, but more importantly, to create their own systems that allow us to be able to impact the lives of patients in a way that nobody else will ever be able to. So take that opportunity seriously. And if you are serious about wanting to dive into this, like I said, click any of the links that we dropped. Find me on LinkedIn, find me on TikTok, find me on Instagram, and let's chat. I look forward to seeing who's going to rise up, who else is going to come along with this journey. Because more than anything else, I'm trying to build a community of people who are trying to do this. One is too small of a number to create a difference. And that means that we need to mutually build each other up to be able to do this. This is a Herculean task. Healthcare has been a billion-dollar industry for a very long time. Now it's time for us to get our little piece of that pie. And this is undoubtedly the greatest way to do it. We'll see y'all next week.